Hi, my name is Robin, and welcome to English Grammar Now. Today, we're talking about what were you doing? This is the past continuous tense. We've already studied the present continuous tense, and we've also looked at the past simple. So we're putting those two together to make the past continuous. Just like in the present, we use continuous to talk about things that happened for a longer time. You may remember that the present continuous tense goes like this. We add the pronoun at the beginning, then the to-be verb, am, is, or are. Then we put in the main verb, and we add the ending ing to the end. The same thing happens in the past. We start with a pronoun. Then we put in the past tense of the to-be verb, was or were. The main verb with the ing ending is the same as in the present tense. When we change a sentence from the present into the past that is continuous, you may notice that we have two verbs. For example, they are sitting in the classroom. The first verb is are. The second verb is sitting. Because sitting has the meaning that we want in the sentence, we call it the main verb. The to-be verb that comes before it, we call a helping verb, because it's helping us to say what we want. When we change a sentence from the present into the past, we only change the helping verb into the past tense. So we would change are into were. Sitting can be changed into the past if it doesn't have ing at the end. Sit can become sat. But there are no past tense verbs that have ing at the end. So we cannot use a word like satting. The correct way to change this sentence into the past is to say, they were sitting in the classroom. Only the first verb gets changed into the past tense. We can also add negative into past continuous sentences. Usually, we combine not with the to-be verb. For example, the computer wasn't working this morning. I wasn't listening to the instructions. You weren't waiting for me after class. We could, of course, keep the long form of these two words, was not, were not. But it's much more common to put them together in a contraction. Wasn't, weren't. We can also make questions with the past continuous tense. Just like we would do in the present, we take the to-be verb and move it to the beginning of the question. So we could say, was he doing his homework last night? Were they living next door to you in 2020? Don't forget to make the first letter of a question capitalized and to add a question mark at the end. We can also add a question word to make a more complicated question. For example, what was she saying? Where was she working? When were they in India? Let's compare the past simple with the past continuous. We've already talked about how to make a past simple statement. However, the meaning is a little different than using the past continuous. When we say something like, I slept for 8 hours last night, we are showing that the action in the past started and stopped. There was a beginning and an end to what happened. But if we say the same idea in past continuous, for example, I was sleeping when the phone rang, this has a different meaning. We are showing that one action in the past was happening for a longer time when something else happened. The phone rang. So I was sleeping before the phone rang, and that continued for a long time. Here's another example. The store closed at 6 p.m. This is also an action in the past that was completed. It finished. But if we change it into past continuous, we might have a sentence like this. The store was closing, so we only bought half the groceries we needed. This shows us that the action, closing, hasn't finished when we were doing something else. So, for some time, the store was closing, which is why we didn't buy all the groceries we needed. Try it out. Here we have an example for you. I lived in Sydney from 2008 to 2014. In that sentence, we are using the past simple because it has a start and an end time. In the middle, we might use the past continuous. For example, in 2011, I was living in Sydney. For each of these three examples, you can write a past continuous sentence using the verb in brackets. Give it a try. Here's the answers to those questions. We watched the movie from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So, the movie watching started at 7 and it ended at 9. All the time in between, we would use the past continuous. At 8:15, for example, we were watching the movie. For number 2, his sister traveled for work in July. So, at the beginning of July, she began to travel, and at the end of July, she was finished traveling. So, we can make a sentence using the past continuous. For our example, on July 12th, his sister was traveling for work. For number 3, I waited for my test results from Sunday until Friday. So, in the middle of that time is Thursday. On Thursday, I was waiting for my test results. So, I hope that wasn't too difficult for you. Let's look at something else. Here's a conversation that uses the past continuous. See if you can find the examples of past continuous. Tell me how you met Dave. Well, I was working at a coffee shop, and he was studying at the university nearby. He came in often and talked to me. You were living with your brother then, right? Yes, I was. I was hoping to live on my own. Were you and Dave hanging out often? Yes, all the time. Here's the examples of past continuous in this conversation. Was working, was studying, were living, was hoping, and were hanging out. You can also see that we've used some examples of the past simple. Met, came, talked, was. Often, when we talk about the past, we will use different tenses to show what was happening. Thanks for studying the past continuous with me. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.